Well, welcome today to this episode of the Children First Family Law Podcast. I am really excited to welcome Dr. Marsha Kline Pruett, who is a really well-renowned leader in family law. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me here.
Dr. Pruett has so much experience all over the map, but one of the main reasons we landed today to have a conversation was to talk about something that we have not addressed as a separate topic, at least on the podcast yet, and that is fathering, the important role of fathers, the things that we need to think about that. I'm a little bit beyond Father's Day as we're recording this, but I've been thinking about fathers a lot, and I'm just excited to get some insight on that. So maybe start with a little bit of introduction of yourself, of how you came into the work of kind of being somebody who understands this area of family law, and then we'll start talking through some questions.
Sure. Actually, I'm glad that we're beyond Father's Day because one of my beefs is that we always talk to men on Father's Day when any day should be a good time to bring men on.
I like that.
Um,
Yeah.
I've been talking, I've been working with fathers because I've been working with couples and families all of my professional life. But about 30 years ago, the state of California, the Office of Child Abuse Prevention, approached me and said that they wanted to put a lot of money into a big project, that they felt like nothing had moved the needle. And they wanted to look at supporting father involvement in a positive way with mothers, whether married or unmarried, and all across the state. So my collaborators, one of whom was my husband, Kyle Pruett, who also is known for working with fathers and writing about fathers, and our two colleagues, whom we didn't know they were inviting, but it turned out they did, and we all knew each other. So Phil and Carolyn Cowan, and the four of us were given grants for many years. It was back in the day when you could have 16 years of funding. And we saw 1,000 families. And from there, I did the same work in Canada, and Callum's did it in England. And we took a little bit of the work to the UAE, the Arab Emirates, and it just kept expanding. It's working in Malta, and some work was done in various places. What's different about it is that it focuses not just on fathers, but we all believed, and I believe strongly, that if you're going to bring men strongly into family life, you also have to bring in the mothers, who are often the family gatekeepers and the partners of the men, and you want them present. So we work on strengthening the individual, the parenting, the partnership, the parent-child relationships, and the three-generation relationships between fathers, grandfathers, and children, or mothers, grandmothers, and children. And then finally, we look at the balance between stress and social support within the wider world outside the family. And we brought together groups, and we did a 32-hour curriculum, and we had control groups and had fantastic results. So that's how I got into this.
Wow.
And since then, I've been doing a lot of writing and working with a lot of men who are actually very eager to be part of family projects.
So what about when we start to talk about a divorce situation or parents that were never married? What are your initial thoughts about what we know about the importance of father involvement in those dynamics? And sort of, I guess you could also talk about the challenges that we face. You talked earlier about sort of this mother gatekeeping, and how do we engage a father? Why is it important, and how do we start to get into that where we're supporting fathers in that post-divorce world?
Yeah, so obviously it's more fraught. If the parents are never married or separating, but they're either friendly or they're both invested in both parents being involved with the child, then it looks a lot like it could in intact families. But there is an important value to having a home together, to having time together where you're living in the same space. And when men don't have that, it's harder for them often to feel like they have authority and a sense of I can I can parent this child because they don't have the kind of opportunities that you have when you live together of, okay, we're mad at each other, but there's always 2 hours from now or 5 hours from now or tomorrow. So that's definitely harder. And we see a lot of gatekeeping on both parents' parts. It used to be mostly mothers, but now it's both parents. And that kind of gatekeeping is, well, now that we're split up, I'm going to try and get the most time with the child. I'm going to do the most things with the child, and I'm going to make you secondary. There's a whole movement in our country where parents are often being pushed out of their children's lives. And we know that that continues, and it continues actually whether parents are separated or divorced. There's kind of a divorce, oh, a divorcing your parent for a while that's happening at all ages and all stages. And it has serious consequences for everybody in the family. It often starts with divorce, not only divorce, but it does. And it's the parent who has more involvement or more power or more money um, or more free time that often is the one that kind of sets the the pulse of how time together goes. But what we do know is that it's really important for children to have involvement with both parents to the extent that they can. When they don't have that involvement, they feel hungry for it. They can idealize it. They can um, really miss it. And it's it's painful for children to not have time. I'm talking about fathers because this is about fathering.
Mhm.
It's true of mothers too, but um, it's really painful for children not to have that access to their fathers, even when their dads are often compromised in some way in their behavior or their mental health, or maybe they drink. So children still miss them and want to know who they are, partly because it's half of their gene pool, and children want to know who they themselves are. And they know that to the extent that they know who each parent is. It's like, oh, I'm part of that
Mm.
family. I look like that guy. And I do things like her like this, and I do things like him like that. Otherwise, there's sort of a chapter missing in the book.
It's interesting you talk about the bank issue, and getting money in the bank because I had Dr. Saini on and he talked about incremental trust building with parents. And I wonder what if you have some thoughts on that. I know we only have a few minutes left. So I want to cover maybe two more things, maybe this, and then maybe just a brief sort of what you wish family law attorneys and people would do to make this situation better for children and their fathers. But I first would ask just, this problem of maybe it is this triangle thing that you mentioned with the mom, the dad, and the child, but there's so much distrust often from the mother. Again, we're talking, there's lots of combinations of families, but oftentimes a mother is like, this guy is clueless or I don't trust him for a variety of reasons. Either he's hurt me, or I just think he's a ding dong, or I know I can do it better. I've had mothers say there's no way he can do the kindergarten homework folder, like kind of ridiculous levels of, it's not going to get done my way. So I get how hard this is. It would be hard for me, and I get that, but how does that trust building like, what do fathers need to know about that? You kind of addressed it. You said, you gotta get equipped and you gotta do it. Is that your message, or is there anything else fathers should do to kind of, like, prove that it's like you gotta show up and show mom that you can do it. You have to build the trust back up. Oh, don't you think that's a big piece of it?
Absolutely. And Dr. Saini and I have done some of that work together. So whenever he
Oh,
said
there
it,
you go.
I'm
It's your
sure I'd
research.
agree with
Yeah,
it.
he's talking about. There you go. I should have known
Yeah,
that.
no, we're in it together.
Yeah, there you go.
Um, but there's a difference between not doing it the other parent's way and not doing it.
Mm,
So it's fine to do it whatever way you need to do it. But if you're going to build up trust, you need to communicate what you're doing, why you're doing it, and when you mess up, to take responsibility for it.
mhm.
That really helps build trust.
Yeah.
To say, I'm really sorry, and I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. If you keep saying you're sorry, but doing it again and again and again, trust is out the window, maybe for good. So, like I said, show up,
Mm,
but also be aware. Just say you're sorry.
right.
See what matters to the other parent. Don't be petty. Give them more of what they're asking for if you can. One of my favorite sayings used to be, "It's no skin off your nose."
Exactly.
Just it's if you can give it, give it.
Right.
So what? They didn't put their dishes in the sink again. That is annoying. We all know it's
Right.
but really, is it worth making a thing about?
Right.
Think of all the things that they do well for your child or for you.
Right.
And that's what's important.